Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. And yes, once again, we have a special conversation episode. And in this edition, I am joined by writer and director Anthony Sutcliffe. I first met Anthony about 2 years ago at Worcester Film Festival, where I first saw his short film, Cope, and it absolutely made a lasting impression on me. It's a short film I've referenced to a lot of other filmmakers over the last couple of years, something at the time that was talked about at the festival, but when I saw it, I was like, yes, this is a short film, this is how to make a short film, and it absolutely went down well at the festival. So it was a conversation I've been wanting to have for a while, so I was grateful to get Anthony onto the podcast and have a chat about the film. Cope follows a man who tells himself he has 6 weeks to live. Without giving too much away, it's a beautifully constructed, twist-filled piece of storytelling, and it's a great example of how to craft something that has impact but a full rounded narrative in such a small amount of time. There's different schools of thought on short film making. Sometimes a short film is just a segment of what could be a bigger piece, sometimes it's a scene that could be expanded out, but I always love a short film where in of itself it's a narrative, it's an idea, but it's a complete arc that's told in that 5, 6, 7 minutes in this case. Yes, there's longer short films, but if you can tell a story and have an impact on an audience in that amount of time, I think you're really onto a winner, and Cope was exactly that. In this conversation, we chat about how Anthony wrote the scripts. It came to him one night. He wrote it on his phone, one-handed at 3 a.m. when he was settling in his newborn. And we talk about why that was the time it came to him, how it kind of just came out, and that first draft was pretty much what the film came to, and why that experience of new fatherhood was something that inspired the narrative behind this film. The film went on to win a number of festival awards and has since surpassed 1 million views on YouTube with virtually no promotion. And that was one of the fascinating things that we chatted about, is that when I saw that he'd released the film on YouTube, I was eager to watch it again, of course, but I've been keeping tabs on it ever since it came out, and to see it get the credit it deserves and so many people watching it on YouTube was fantastic. And it opens up the whole conversation and idea of the power of YouTube and how there is actually a big audience on YouTube for watching short films. But I was keen to ask Anthony how he actually gathered that audience and got the viewers in. So as you'll hear in this conversation, there wasn't actually too much from his perspective, which just shows a great film, well made. If you can just about get it in front of the right audience at the start, can get that traction, which I found very exciting and very interesting. But beyond the short film Cope, Anthony has spent 20 years in the industry, working in television and also creating his own short films. Started out at a Bristol post-production house before working his way up through the camera department on TV shows such as Midsummer Murders, which he talks about, and that's an area that he still works in now, working on all sorts of productions in different areas. But I think his is a great story, a classic story of how you can work your way up through the world of production, specifically for Anthony in TV, but all the opportunities that's opened up to him along the way. Throughout the episode, we cover that journey from his love of television as a youngster all the way to working in the world of television and film now, and talk about what he's working on, what he's developing, and what his views for the future are. It was a genuine pleasure speaking with Anthony. I think you'll agree after listening to this conversation, he's a filmmaker well worth following, as I'm sure he'll produce some fantastic stuff going forward. But that's enough from me. Let's hear from Anthony. Let's all get excited about the world of film, and specifically Anthony's film Cope, and I hope that you, if you haven't already seen it, will be enthused to watch it after listening to this episode. This is my conversation with Anthony Sutcliffe. Anthony, thanks for joining me today. I'm looking forward to having a chat, and it was actually it was nearly a couple of years now that we first met at Worcester Film Festival, so thank you for joining me for a conversation today. How have you been?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I don't like being interviewed normally, but I remember that interview very fondly because you made it very easy. So it took me 2 years to pluck up the courage, but I'm back again for more. So
Oh, well, thank you very much. I do appreciate you joining, and it'd be great to chat about your career so far, but also the film that I saw at Worcester Film Festival, Cope. I'm very excited to get onto that and quiz you a bit about the making of that film. But before we start out, I always like to ask guests about film, TV, anything creative, but everyone has their different route into that whether it be from childhood or more in recent years. But what first got you interested in the world of film and TV, and what were you watching at first that kind of really appealed to you and thought, I want to be involved in this world?
Yeah, it was sort of a slow process, really, when I look back at it. As a child, I was known amongst all the family. I was a TV addict, complete TV addict. I would watch anything and everything, and that was mostly what I wanted to do. I'd get up early and watch Open University, watch sort of lectures and graphs and stuff like that when I was sort of 6 or 7. But it was just the TV was on. I just wanted to watch TV all the time. So it started out as a love of that, but not with any awareness of it being made, of that people worked on it. And I loved old films and everything, but yeah, no particular interest in getting into it until, I don't know, when I was probably about sort of 10 or 12. I started getting really interested in special effects. That was my sort of way into it, and I started becoming aware of how these things were made. And I'd buy a lot of books on that, the making of Back to the Future or something, or Industrial Light and Magic, and started getting into special effects and the stunts first. And then as I got older, I started becoming a bit more interested in the storytelling side of
Mhm.
things, and a sort of started to watch films and then thinking like, well, why is this film better than that film? Why is this scene better than that scene? What is it that they're doing that makes it more enjoyable, more gripping?
Mhm.
And started becoming aware of sort of framing and how the camera is used, and it sort of gradually built up. Started making my own little films at school, chase films, just silly things, and then just yeah, real slow sort of process of building up until probably when I was about sort of 17, I decided that's what I wanted to do. So decided to do a film degree after that.
Well, it's interesting you say that about different elements of film that you found compelling at first. You've got like the special effects, but then the storytelling element. But for you now, what makes a great film? What draws you in for a film? Is it the story? Is it the effects, the framing? What's the thing for you that you look at a film that really like speaks to you?
It's a tricky question to answer. It can be, I think it's probably the way it all unifies together, which I
Yeah.
suppose, that's what, when the film is being well directed, when you get the sense you're in good hands because everything fits together within the film. Uh, Nothing feels out of place. There's no sort of misplaced. Sometimes you watch a film and then there'll just be a shot and you go, ah, that's a shame. That shot just wasn't right for that moment in that film. And it just sort of throws you out of it. So I suppose it's that sort of sense that everything is unified and working towards one purpose.
Yeah, I get that. I was thinking about something like that recently, especially when you watch a lot of short films. When you're condensing a story into such a short period of time, those little things do stand out more. And sometimes there is something that's hard to put your finger on, but kind of you say there when it all comes together, there's a certain like satisfaction and feeling you get from actually just that knowing that okay, that's worked just right, and that kind of bond of the whole film and all those elements are coming together. So yeah, I totally get that, and I feel that when I'm watching short films, especially in terms of specific films or writers, directors that you've watched over the years that have really stood out to you, or maybe even inspired your work or passion. Is there anyone that really stands out that you've kind of looked at and thought, yeah, that's the type of film that I like?
Um, I really like, it's a sort of a boring answer. I just love so many different sorts of films. I did a degree in film studies where we went sort of over the history of cinema, and we do sections in French films and American New Wave and everything like that. Classical Hollywood, and I love all of it really. But Spielberg, I've always been a big fan of Steven Spielberg. Um, I think he's brilliant. Coen Brothers, I like Kurosawa. Um, what else do I like? Paul Thomas Anderson. It's just
Yeah,
lots of
yeah.
lots of things. How about you? Are there certain genres or certain filmmakers you like?
I'm always a big fan. I always bang on about this of a good one location film. I kind
Yeah,
of like, for me, like it's scripts that really draws me in, and like a one location is very much theatre on screen. And I think that, I mean, half of me with a producer hat on likes a one
yeah,
location because for it's how makeable it is and how you can actually produce it. But I think if you can nail a one location film, it shows that you've written a really good script,
yeah,
because it's all on the dialogue and the character development then. So, I mean, I suppose like the an older reference of that would be Breakfast Club as a good example of something like that. Even before that, we're going back like 12 Angry Men, like where you've just got a great
yeah.
script really
Love that.
developed. But I think Breakfast Club's then a good example because I love a coming of age film as well. Because I think that you can really delve into a certain feeling in a coming of age film, and I think stuff like Breakfast Club always resonates with me. But yeah, give me a one location and I'm in for it.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, I'm sort of looking at the moment into making a micro budget feature, and that sort of dreaming of a one location idea that will just be like a killer idea. I think that's probably what all sort of beginning filmmakers are looking for, isn't it? That great idea, that great location that can make it work and sustain for an hour and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you'll know, as a independent filmmaker, you're always making those trade-offs between the idea and the vision, but budget restrictions and time restrictions as well. And I suppose that is the trade-off, isn't it? Like if you get multiple great locations, you're then restricted on time for filming them. But if you get that one great location, you need to make sure that your scripts and stories bang on. But
Yeah.
yeah, all of that fascinates me absolutely because you can see the intricacies of how it's all made there. And just going back to what you said about going to film school, and I spoke to various people on the podcast, people who have formally studied film, or people who have got into it from different ways. What do you think a more formal education it gave you? And also on the flip side, what do you think you've learned outside of that that necessarily that couldn't provide?
Yeah, my course was interesting. I went to the University of Kent, and certainly back then they treated film as a language in the same
Hmm.
way that you study English as a language. They treated it that seriously. So it was about how you could, how you construct a film. What is montage um, and what does framing say? It was all very sort of serious about that film is an art form. But what it didn't do was teach me anything practical whatsoever. It was
Okay. Yeah.
pure theory and history, which was fantastic. I didn't miss a lecture in 3 years. I loved it, and they always screened the films in 35mm in the cinema, kind of thing. So all the films on the course you watch properly in the cinema, which was great. And it just sort of opened my eyes to the breadth of stuff. I think starting out, you sort of tend to watch the classical Hollywood stuff or sort of the modern Hollywood stuff as a teenager and get really into that. And then you sort of get your eyes open to world cinema. So from that point of view, it was great. There was one option in film production we did in the third year where we got to shoot a film on 16 mil.
Hmm.
But we didn't get much guidance for how to do that. And certainly when I graduated, I didn't know what a BNC cable was. I didn't know anything about filmmaking really on the practical level. So yes, it was great. It was a great 3 years. And it's kind of like, oh, if I ever make it as a director, it would have been really useful.
Hmm.
But I basically had to start from scratch to get into the industry,
Yeah.
because I wasn't set up at all for that. Whereas, more practical courses, I think they're a lot better these days, at sort of gearing people up and getting them training so that they can actually build a career.
It sounds fascinating though. It sounds like something I'd like to do now. Like,
Yeah,
and
I'd
it's
like to go
very,
back. That's
yeah,
one of
yeah,
my sort of lottery dreams is to go and do a master's or something in the same sort of thing.
yeah. I always think that because I studied history at university, and my film love came a bit later. I'd always been interested in films, but it was only really at the end of university and post university, I've really kind of gotten into it and gone on from there. But now when I look back, I'm like, oh, I'd love to combine those two interests in film theory and film discussion and history. And that sounds like very similar to what you studied there. But that, yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah,
So
and
then,
there are short courses you can do online. I did a couple of years ago. I did a 12-week course in film noir where you
all
get
right,
like reading to do and seminars and films to watch. So yeah, those sorts of things are really fun as well.
okay. Well, I like the sound of that. Yeah, absolutely. So then you said then trying to learn practical skills, you start from scratch there and you need to go and basically throw yourself in to figure that out. What did that transition look like? And then how did you get yourself from that position of having a good theoretical background to then be in a place where you're in the industry working and then have a good understanding of actual production?
Yeah, it was. When I left uni, I decided to take it. I lived in Essex. I decided to take a job in the city because it pays well, and I thought I'll buy a camera and we can make films at the weekend. Um, but it was so depressing working in an office. It
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
killed. It completely killed me. I just couldn't do anything at weekends. So change of plan. I quit my job and I moved to Bristol, and tried to get a job as a runner. So went around with a CV to all the post production companies in Bristol, and fortunately managed to get a job there. cleaning toilets and making tea for the editors. Took a 50% pay cut to do that, and I just loved it. Just immediately loved it. I was sort of where I wanted to be. So even though the job was quite mundane, it was just really exciting. And then I stayed there for a year, meeting people, sitting in on dubbing mixes and online edits and offline edits, and learning about the post production process. But I really wanted to get on set because I wanted to see what directors do. So through someone I met there, I managed to get a job as a camera trainee on a drama, just with the idea of getting on set. So I had like a 14-week job as a trainee. And yeah, sort of in at the deep end at that point with the practical side of things. And I'm a very impractical person.
Okay.
Growing up, just useless. And so I'm amazed I've sustained a career in the camera department for these last 20 years, because it's just all like it was a struggle, at the beginning, becoming practical, starting to think practically. It's a big part of the job. But I only sort of went into the camera department just to get on set. But then, 20 years later, I'm still in the camera department, and I absolutely love it. I love being in the camera department. It's great fun. So yes, it was a slow process, and just learning on the job, getting told off a lot and corrected a lot, and until I can, get by and survive as the camera technician.
So what does that look like then, actually, when you're there? Because a lot of people do talk about you started off in a junior position and work your way up and learn as you go. But how does that work? Does someone give an opportunity to go, I can show you how to do this little bit, and then you train a little bit on set and an opportunity opens up? Because from my understanding, it's not as formal as like, okay, you work on this for a year and then we'll give you that. It's more like as opportunities open up. Like, how did that work for you from going from that position as a runner and then getting that first opportunity to the position that you are now?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a formal process, but there is a sort of a natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a new thing come out called Cine Certified, which is an attempt to formalize that process so that people actually follow a sort of curriculum on each of their jobs and get signed off as being a competent trainee. It's a really good system to sort of make sure that they're learning everything they need to know.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, it was very ad hoc. I was quite fortunate. My first clapper-loader who I worked for as a trainee was quite lazy. And so she just pushed everything at me. I was loading all the film, doing all the sheets, putting on the board quite a lot, because you just suddenly walk off set and hand me the board just as they're turning over. And so, you sort of learn things that way, asking questions. If you're working with nice people, they're keen to help you out, really. And just sort of getting comfortable at your skills so that you start to do your job hopefully well, and then you start sort of looking at the person above you, what they're doing, and standing in for them sometimes. And it's sort of a natural progress. But I sort of progressed very quickly, which I don't think was probably a good thing in retrospect. It sort of happened too quickly. I don't think I was a trainee for long enough. Some people are a trainee for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
My second job, I was a camera assistant, not a trainee. So I'd only done it for sort of 4 months, really.
Right. Okay.
I sort of fluctuate. It was sort of both jobs at once, because that's all they had was one assistant. So I was the assistant and the trainee kind of thing. And so I was pulling focus after about a little bit after that, sort of 2 or 3 years. But it meant that when I got onto the big jobs, when I had to set up a production, you come in on a drama and you have to say what kit you want and you have to organize all the kit. I hadn't had that grounding as a trainee. I didn't know all the details that I really should know. When I'm managing the training, I should be able to say to them, like, now you need to do this. But I was kind of like, what are you going to do now? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think, you want to, it was a bit too fast for me, it's worked out okay in the end. I've sort of filled in the gaps in the knowledge that I didn't learn when I was a trainee. So I've got there in the end.
It's interesting you said that new process that's been brought in more and more, like to formalize it, because I've always had that kind of view where you're like, okay, you can learn on the job and stuff like that, but it's just very much figured this bit out, figured that bit out, you get your opportunity. But I suppose that makes sense to be like, okay, these are the things you need to learn at this level, so make sure you do it until you progress to the next one. But yeah, it's always interesting chatting to how people have their different routes through, and find opportunities. Like, so it's a funny example there of the person that you were working under was just passing everything off to you anyway, so you had to figure it out. So I suppose that's one way of making it work quite quickly when you just got
Yeah,
things on your
stressful, but it's quick. Um, but yeah, hopefully now it's weird. The camera department has really changed in the last 20 years. There was sort of a system of bullying was kind of how it worked. It was kind of it was sort of saw itself very much as like a sort of a military regime. And there was a kind of an attitude of I was bullied when I was a trainee, so now I'm going to bully you. And it was kind of that's how it works. So it's met some quite horrible people when I started out, but it feels like it's really changed in the last sort of 10, 15 years. And
Okay.
everyone's lovely now, it seems. It's just a
That's
much
good to
nicer
know.
place than it used to be. Yeah, and I've
Yeah,
tried
yeah.
not to pass on the bullying
Yeah,
my
yeah,
my
keep that
team,
down.
hopefully. Don't bite in. So yeah, so it's a much more of a helpful environment than it used to be, I would say. And people are
Yeah,
willing to teach. People,
okay.
you want people to progress, not too quickly, because when you found a good assistant, you kind of don't want to lose them.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, grudgingly, I'll teach them how to focus pull and they can
Yeah.
move on from there.
Yeah, good, good. So in terms of you've done a lot of work in the TV industry over the years. So what specific projects over the years have stood out to you that you've worked on and have kind of aided your development and things that really stand out to you in your career so far?
Hmm, that's tricky. I mean, Casualty is a sort of a fairly it's a really good place for training. Basically, it's um, it's very quick. There's a lot of interest that you're doing a lot of interesting stuff, and once you sort of get in there, you can work there. I think I did 52 episodes of Casualty over about two
Oh, wow.
years. So once you're in, kind of thing, then you stay with it. And
Mhm.
every 4 weeks, a new director, a new DOP comes on, and you're working with lots of different people. You're making lots of different contacts. So that was a really good training ground. And you're doing interesting stuff with the stunt things, explosions, a
Yeah,
double-decker
yeah.
bus falling over, a helicopter into a hospital. They're all sort of good, fun things, and you sort of learn a lot quite quickly that way. Um, and in the last few years, I've done a lot of Midsummer Murders, which is sort of it's just the loveliest show to work on. It's
Mhm.
just, and it runs most years so far. Fingers crossed it keeps going. So that sort of sustains me with that show. And they're very supportive with letting you step up. So sort of they let me step up to camera operating. They let me. I bought a drone and they let me fly the drone for the show now. They let me direct second unit kind of sometimes. So
Okay.
it's that's been really good.
So like that is quite a bedrock, I suppose, of British culture, these ongoing dramas that have gone on for years.
Mm.
Would you say they are a great place um, inside from a development perspective that you do have these consistent shows that are filmed on a regular basis? As you say, you're working with different people and it gives the opportunity to kind of train new people and experiment in different roles. Do you think those specific series are quite important to the industry for that reason?
Yeah, they're hugely important, and I think unfortunately a lot of them are going.
Mhm.
Um, Doctors was like the great training ground for camera teams, and that's gone now. There's Holby City, and another hospital drama that's gone now. It sort of feels like these shows are disappearing, and they were the shows where they didn't always pay brilliantly, but the BBC said they're a training ground. This is where you can step up, and they certainly Casualty did give people a chance to do that, and Doctors did as well. I did some camera operating on Doctors with sort of almost zero experience,
Mhm.
but you're just sort of thrown in, and it's so fast paced. It's such a great way to learn. So yeah, it's a little bit worrying that these shows are all disappearing. I think if Casualty goes, I don't know what's left to do that.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know where the training grounds are after that.
because suppose it's one thing when it's looked at from the perspective of only big shiny dramas to put out there, and that's one thing on the high end, isn't it? But if you look at it from that industry perspective, it's like, well, you can't have that without the other because you need it's all part of the kind of ecosystem of the industry to bring people through and develop the skills and ideas as well.
Absolutely, yeah. With the big drama, they won't give you a chance to step up. They won't take a risk on you because it's too expensive, and they're paying so well they can get the biggest people in the country to come and do the job, or in the world. People will come over here to shoot a drama, um, so they won't be picking someone from the local town. So yes, it's a bit worrying how people are going to train up in future. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, no, I see that. But I suppose there's only so long you can sustain that if you don't then develop the talent. It's like, okay, well, now we can commission a big, shiny show and bring the best in those roles to do it. But like, they can only do that for so long. There's not new people to replace that. Yeah, I get
And I
that.
think I think there's a risk then as well that nepotism sort of creeps back into the
Yeah,
industry.
yeah.
This is what it always used to be like, 40, 50 years ago. Everyone was somebody's son or daughter. Um, and I think having these training grounds means a lot of people with no contacts, like I had no contacts at all, can get into the industry and start training up and learning how to do the job. Whereas I think as those opportunities become less, they'll more be filled with people's sons and daughters again,
Mhm.
or family, friends, and that kind of thing. And it starts to close the industry down, especially for working class people or people who don't already have family members in the industry.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to say that actually, because that's something that I've always found from meeting people at film festivals, meeting people on shoots, is that it is kind of, you develop a community in TV and film, is that you make contacts and you meet people who are like minded and things like that. And that's one good element of it, that you can do that. You can have the opportunity to do that if you're committed and you're passionate and skilled to do it, rather than just being handed it. But would you say over the years that, I know you said maybe 15 years ago it was a bit more intense and strict and militant, but have you met a lot of good people over the years who have been willing to give you those opportunities and help you out through your career? Because that's something that always seems like that's an important part of it, and you have to have a positive filmmaking and production communities for everyone to be able to work together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely a mix, but yes, okay, every now and again you meet someone who's really up for it, or you establish yourself that they trust you enough that when you say, "Oh, can I do that?" then that up you doing it. So something like Midsummer Murders that I do every year, it really feels like a family kind of vibe, and they're keen to help you out, kind of thing. Um, Other shows perhaps less so. But yeah, that's one of the things I loved about the industry, talking about sort of the mix of people there, is that if you certain jobs, if you work, I started out working in insurance, and there's
Mhm.
probably just one sort of person who works in insurance from from a certain background. But the great thing about working on set is there's such a mix of people. I don't know where else you would work with such a mix of people from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
and all get on really well, and it's sort of quite eye opening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love that about the industry, that it gives the opportunity to bring so many people together who have all got like positive ideas. You're doing something creative at the end of the day. So if you can get good people together to do that, I suppose that is only a good thing. Let's move on a little bit more to filmmaking specifically. So over the years, you produced quite a selection of short films in different styles, and we'll get onto the one that I saw at Worcester Film Festival, Cope soon. But I just wanted to first ask how you got into making shorts, and what is it about short films specifically that appeals to you?
I think that they're cheaper than features.
Yes, it's a good
So
start.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a separate form, isn't it? To
Yeah.
a feature film, it's a whole different thing. And I think it was always, growing up as a teenager, I wanted to make features. That was the
Mhm.
dream. But that's quite ambitious. I started making a 45-minute feature when I was about 17. Not really a feature, a long short, I suppose. Um, and that was a lot of work, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was a little bit too ambitious. So then you start thinking, well, what can I do? Like you say, a single location or something. What can I do that's a bit smaller? And you start trying to sort of bring your ideas down so they're actually achievable, because it's quite hard to set up a film, even a short film. There's a lot of work involved. Um, and so yeah, so I sort of became interested in just trying to sort of make little things I could film, um, and sort of yeah. So the sort of interest was really just to be making something,
Mhm.
and a feature film is too long and too expensive. So it wasn't so much when I started out a love of short films exactly. Um, it was more just to find something to work on, just to make stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you say then, having made a good amount of shorts then, is what are the restrictions of short films, but what's also the opportunity it presents as a filmmaker to produce in that way?
Yeah, I mean, one of the great opportunities is very low stakes. If it's something that you've created yourself and funded yourself, if it's a complete disaster, you can just bin it. So
Yeah.
it kind of, from a sort of creative point of view, it enables you to take risks that you wouldn't be able to do if you're spending somebody else's money or there's a lot of money behind it. You can just try stuff out. You can make it your way. You have complete control over it if you're producer, director, writer. Usually when we all start out, we're lead actor, sound recordist, cinematographer, and we're just trying to sort of make something work like that. So you get to make mistakes. You get to try stuff out. You get to watch your film back and realize what a disaster it was, and then next time veg to not make that mistake again. So that's what I like about it, is you can just say, it doesn't matter, this is terrible. Let's just make it. Let's just go for it and see how it turns out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from the perspective of writing and directing, what is it that appeals to you about that? Because obviously in your TV work, you're working in the camera department, but there you're very much allowing yourself to express that side of things, of writing and directing. What is it you get out of that, and why does it appeal to you to create your own work like that?
Yeah, I mean, difficult question, because what is the urge for anybody to create? Why do we create? It's just really satisfying. I suppose there's something. I think cinema is magical. I think it's just a magical thing. Just putting two shots together and it creates a meaning is just like a magical thing to do. And there's just something very satisfying about having an idea in your head. Just it's so ephemeral. It's so nothing. It's just an idea, and then putting that as words on a page, and then getting people together and filming it, and then cutting it together and showing it to somebody, and it creating an impact on them in some way, creating an emotion, whether it's just making them laugh or making them cry. It's just like a magical thing to do, I think. So yeah, I guess I just like telling stories. I suppose it's some sort of urge to just share a story that you thought of.
Yeah. No, I'll fully align with that. In terms of style, though, I noticed in a bit of a through line through some of your shots is that a lot of them have a hidden meaning that's then kind of unveiled throughout, whether it be slightly cloaked behind the language or whether it be in the narrative. Is that something stylistically that you pursued, like that's how you like to tell a story, or is it something that's just kind of come out through your work?
Yes, that's interesting because sometimes when people talk to you, they say, "Oh, what's your style? What's your way of making films?" And I very strongly don't think of a style.
Mhm.
For me, the script is kind of like the Bible for everything. So you write the script or you get given a script, and then every decision you make is based on that script. I don't think you should be imposing your style on the film. You should
Yeah.
be like, oh, where can I get my shot from inside a boot? I always put in my films. I don't want to think
Yeah.
like that. It's just you have the script and then you work on that. So I try and be unaware of any style that I have. I try not to think about it too much, and I was interested, to see if I thought you might say something like, "Oh, your films are all very samey. They all have the same style," or something like that. Because I don't set out to do that, but I was thinking about it this morning and thinking, "Oh, they're all a bit samey. Have they similar style?" But I think what you've identified there is interesting. But I think that's probably the nature of a short film rather than the
Yes.
nature of
Okay.
a story
Yeah.
that I want to tell. Um, when you haven't got long, there's a couple of approaches. You can make a gag. You can do a
Mhm.
few jokes and a big gag at the end, and it's a good funny film. Or you can do like a poem. Your film could be a poem that kind of just immerses the audience in a world for a couple of minutes and then sends them away again. Or you do a twist, I suppose, and you have a twist, and then say you sort of lead them down one path and then pull the rug from under them, and they get that sort of moment of, oh, it's actually about this, and then the film ends. They're sort of there's probably loads of structures, but off the top of my head, there are sort of the three main types of short film. Um, I think if you try and do too much more than that in a short film, something you can get accused of. I've been accused of with some of my scripts is that basically, oh, that's a feature.
Okay.
You should make that into a feature. Your idea is too big, too much going on, kind of thing. So I think that sort of approach of it being more like a poem or a joke, um, or a quick story, like I say, a quick twist is the sort of way to approach short films often. So I guess, maybe I find that satisfying. I don't want to be an M. Night Shyamalan and
Sure.
everybody's waiting for the twist. But yes, I probably have done that a few times. I'll make a mental note not to do that with the next one.
No, but I mean, I think, and style is one thing, isn't it? Because it's not. I totally agree with you. You don't want to be in a position where you're going into a film going, I have to make it in this way or this format to stick with my style. But I suppose inevitably, if you are writing what you want to write and creating what you want to create, that will come in your own kind of signature way, and will go in that direction. Um, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But what you were saying there in terms of having a clear idea and not trying to overdo something, I think that's a really good point. And when I think back to short films that have stood out to me over the years, they are the ones where you think that was one idea executed really well. And when you are trying to cram a lot into a short period of time, you can lose story, you can lose character and things like that. Because you got to remember, like anything from 3 minutes to 15 minutes, like it's still not that long a period of time. And no matter what you're trying to do with it. And I think looking at your previous work and then Cope, especially, as we'll get onto, is like there's an idea there, and it always lands with great impact. And I think that holds a lot more weight than if you're trying to do too much at once. So yeah, I totally get how that's an important element of the creation. In terms of how you're actually coming up with ideas, do you do you have a more formal process? Are you like, right, I want to sit down, I want to create something now, or do you have kind of ongoing ideas that are whirring around your mind? You're like, okay, this is the right time for this one.
Yeah, more the latter, really. I think I sort of live in my head quite a lot. So when I'm just walking around, my mind, or even when people are talking to me face to face, my mind will just drift off and I start thinking about something or they've said and imagining, oh, but what if this then happened? Or, it's just your mind goes off, or films, you watch other films or other media that inspire you. Um, yeah, I have too many ideas. I have more ideas than I can make. And it's a
Mhm.
case of having an idea and then kind of often putting it away for a couple of years and seeing if it still comes back to you every now and again. Oh, that was quite a good idea. So I sort of have a bit of a backlog of ideas of things I could make. It's more the writing takes the time, the struggle of the
Yes.
writing, and then when you finish the writing, a lot of people have. When I watch a lot of short films, I often think that was half of an idea for a film. It
Okay.
didn't sustain for even a short film. It was an idea for a scene. It wasn't an idea for a film.
Mhm.
And I have ideas like that. And when you become aware of how difficult it is to make a film, then it becomes very much like, is this worth it? Is this script that I've written worth the effort it's going to be to make it? And if it's not, then it goes in the metaphorical drawer, never to be seen again. And it's the same with a lot of ideas. I have a lot of half ideas, and it's
Mhm.
just whether they grow into something that's a whole idea, and then going through the process of writing it and then making a decision. Is there enough in this to be worth it?
Yeah, and I get that. And I was speaking to someone recently about writing and the idea of like you can hold on to an idea for a long time, but sometimes you just need to get it out to realize whether it is an actual fully formed idea or it's just towards something to then let the next ones come. And I think a lot of the
Yeah,
time you can
get that in
find
your
yourself
system.
just, yeah, like sat with an idea for so long and it's blocking you from thinking of the other stuff. And actually, when you get it down, you might realize, as you say, oh, it's maybe just a part of a film, it's a scene, it's not necessarily fully formed, and you might be able to develop it or move on to the next one. But I think this is something that when I've spoken to writers who are more prolific or are good at realizing their ideas, it's very much that. It's like, okay, get them out, get them down somewhere, speak them to someone, and you'll find the right one when you get to it. And well, that moves us on nicely to how we first met at Worcester Film Festival, about a year and a half ago now, 2024, when your film Cope was on and went down very well at the festival, award winning. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and that's why I wanted to speak to you after it. But could you just quickly give our listeners a little overview of the film before we dive into it?
Yeah. One of the things that makes sort of I don't like being interviewed because I don't like talking about myself, so that's always tricky. But also, I kind of come from that background that I don't think you should talk about your film, so this is going to be tricky for you, because the film should speak for itself. So
Yeah.
people should watch the film, and anything I say about it spoils it. So I'm always, which makes me terrible at pitching things when people say, "Oh, what's your film about?" And I'm like, maybe you should watch it. I can't really say. But essentially, um, it's about, I don't know, maybe you should describe it. It's about a guy who starts the film and he says he's got 6 weeks to live. And then we follow him through his life and learn more about that throughout the film. And what that means maybe changes as the film goes on.
I think that's a good overview, and I think the beauty of Cope as well is when I was describing it to people after the festival, it was very much of what you were saying then. I was like, I didn't want to tell people too much about it because it's very much something to experience, and you get that. I think the more you know, the less the film will have an impact on you as you watch it. It's very much when I was recommended to watch it at Worcester, I was told just go and watch it and you'll get it. And I think it very much does that impact. So we won't dig too much into actual the content of the film because
Well,
again, I thoroughly encourage everyone to go and watch it on YouTube. But I did
yeah,
want to speak a bit more about um
I think we can assume they've done that now. So we can talk about it if you want. I don't mind spoiling it now.
yes,
If
okay.
you haven't watched it, it's going to get spoiled. There you go.
If you haven't watched it, pause now, head to
Yeah,
YouTube and go and watch Cove, and then we'll dive into it as we go now.
yeah,
But so I think we chatted about this a little bit at Worcester, but I wanted to ask, like, what inspired this film specifically? Where did the idea come from? And then also the format of how it was executed with pretty much all the films are voiceover. There's a little bit of dialogue in there, but it's pretty much done through a voiceover, and then we see the scenes play out. So, what inspired both the idea, but also the style of the film?
yeah. So the idea came from being a new parent. It's I found that really difficult. The first few weeks are really tough. It's exhausting. You're tired, and it's a slog to get through that first few weeks. Or I found it was. Some people seem to
Hmm.
have a delightful time, but and I was just sort of thinking, would I be enjoying this more than I am, or why am I
Yeah.
not enjoying it more than I am? And I just suddenly thought, if I knew this was the last time I was going to be doing this, the last time I was trying to get the baby to sleep, um, would I appreciate it more? Would I enjoy it more? And that was just sort of the idea. And then I was sitting there, trying to get my baby to sleep. And I was just, then my mind just sort of wandered from that. Like, so if you knew it's a finite amount of time, how would you know that if you're dying? Or I thought, well, what if you gave yourself a finite amount of time? Could you say to yourself, oh, I'm going to kill myself in 6 weeks. And then therefore I'll enjoy the next 6 weeks because it's the last time I'm going to do anything. And that would kind of take the pressure off maybe.
Hmm.
Um, and then if that took the pressure off, would you actually want to kill yourself in 6 weeks? They're just sort of having these thoughts sort of going around in my head. And I got my phone out and I just basically wrote the film one-handed while sort of trying to soothe the baby with the other
Brilliant.
on my notes app. And pretty much wrote the voiceover in one go, I think. So yeah, if anyone hasn't watched it, it's a voiceover, like you say, with images showing this guy's life. And yeah, pretty much wrote the dialogue for the voiceover. I don't think that really hardly changed at all from that very first draft to the final film. Um, and it's one of those ideas you sort of put away. You sort of think that's sort of interesting. And so I'd made a few voiceover films before that, or monologue films,
Hmm.
because they're fairly easy to make. You only need one actor. That makes it a lot easier. Um, and I'd been told very strongly by a producer not to make any more monologue films because
Okay.
you've done too many. He was saying, if you want to work in TV drama, a monologue film is not showing us what you can do.
Got you. Okay.
90% of TV drama is two people in the room talking to each other. So that's as a producer, that's what I want to see from people who I might pick as a director. So I was very strongly not going to make another monologue film. So it kind of went into a drawer. But the idea just sort of stayed with me. It just appealed to me. I thought it was interesting. And I liked the fact it has a kind of a 3-act structure naturally within the idea. Hopefully for the first sort of minute or two, you think it's about a guy dying of an illness. Then you realize he's going to kill himself. But then it twists again, and you realize, hopefully, that he's not actually going to kill himself. That actually this is like a coping mechanism that he uses to appreciate life more. And I sort of thought that was interesting. That sort of way of like you say, I always do twists, a little sort of twist or hook just to get the viewers to, but actually, and keep them watching. So the idea sort of went in the drawer, and there was a specific actor I wanted to do it, and I one from Casualty, and I approached him. I sort of wrote it for him, but he didn't want to do it because he'd just played a very similar character on the show. He'd just done a whole year of going through a depression.
Okay.
And he sort of didn't want, as a story, and
Yeah.
he was just like, I don't want to do more of that.
Fair enough.
And so it went in the drawer, and I just kind of forgot about it. It just sat for a couple of years, probably about 5 years, in the drawer, until another actor came to me and said, I want to be a film producer. If I come up with an idea, do you want to direct it for me? And I said, I've got 3 ideas. And I gave him 3 scripts. And that was the one he chose as the one he thought would be the one that we should work on. And so he starred in the film, Nick, and produced it. And I made it. So as for style from it, as I say, I don't know where the style came from. It came from, as I pictured the voiceover, that's what I saw in my head.
Yeah.
So then I tried to make that kind of thing. It's sort of, it's not any more considered than that, really. It's just those are the images.
I think that's the instinct you've got to follow, isn't it? If you then picture it as that, as it comes out, as the idea develops from you, it's like, if that is how it looks in your mind, then it's like, okay, that is the instinct of it. And I was watching it again yesterday, and I've watched it quite a few times now over the last year or so. But I think when I first watched it at the cinema at Worcester, it was those twists that really got me in, like, that is brilliant. Like I was describing it to everyone, was like, it's very clever, was very impactful, and I think they work really well. But when I was watching it again now, knowing how it plays out and thinking, what is it that resonated so much? I think the pacing of it is wonderful in the way that, yes, it's great having the idea of sending a film in different directions, but you have to cut it in the right way, and the beat's got to be right. And I think why, from my perspective, why Cult did land so well is that it just, the pacing of it is perfect, and it has that impact as you go. So it's fascinating to hear how that idea came to you in that moment. And I think in many ways, a lot of ideas like that are the purest ones that just kind of come out of you in a state of emotion. And
Yeah.
the fact that you managed to, you put it aside, and then that moment came when it could come together, and realize that is, all part of the journey of it.
Yeah, but I had no idea whether it would resonate with other people. It wasn't like I was making it thinking, people will like this, or people
Yeah.
will find this interesting. I had no idea at all whether it would appeal to anybody whatsoever. It was just a feeling I had that I was trying to sort of get across on the film. And then, yeah, like with the style of it, there's certain sort of stylistic choices, and it's difficult when you have an image in your head when you're sort of creating a film, and then you sort of try and justify it. Why do I want to do that? And it's hard to tell whether it's like an artistic thing that I'm an artist, and this is how I see it. That's how we should do it, or whether it's just like that was the first idea I thought of, and now I can't think of anything else. So things like sections of the film are handheld, and I always saw that when he's with the baby and when he's rang with his wife, I think they're the only 2 handheld bits, and I always saw those scenes as handheld. I can't sort of give you this because of this and this, but it just that's how they always seemed to me when I saw them. Whereas a lot of the other film, there's a lot of slow push-ins. I wanted to do quite a lot of that. But again, that was just, partly because of the ticking clock of the 6 weeks, sort of sense that we're sort of, the pressure is increasing kind of thing on him. It's partly sort of logical in that way, but also it's partly just that's when I picture that shot, it's moving in slightly. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that is it, isn't it? It's like sometimes things are developed through committee, and people are really discussing exactly what is to be done and why. But a lot of the time, an idea is just an instinct. It's this is what you think of, and you put it out there thinking this feels like the right thing for me to do. Will it resonate with other people? So what was it like then when you did get to screen it at film festivals and get such a positive reaction? And I think this is one thing that we did chat about at Worcester, was then that kind of complete experience of you make something to then see it up on a cinema screen. Like, what did that then feel like?
Yeah, Worcester was a funny one because it was a great festival and a great screening. But there was one guy sat behind me who fell about laughing during the film.
Okay.
I got no idea why. I was sat there with Nick.
I missed the point there.
I don't know. He congratulated me on the way out
Okay.
because he really enjoyed it. But I was like, "Is it funny?" I hadn't realised it was funny. So yes, it's funny how you remember the negative things maybe. But yes, it made Nick and I chuckle a lot afterwards for some weeks afterwards at this guy. He thought it was hilarious. But yeah, it's always really useful seeing a film with an audience because even if they don't say anything or even if they don't audibly react, you can sort of sense their energy.
Mhm.
I think it always feels very different. The films feel slower or certain things that slightly bothered you in the edit, you then watch on the big screen with people and you start to get really sort of, oh no, yeah, I should have fixed that. I always hated our end credits at the film festivals. It always looked really bad, so we redid them when it went online. They just look cheap. I don't know why. So yeah, but yes, it's a good experience. It's a funny thing, festivals. It's not like you screen a film and then hundreds of people are coming up to you afterwards saying, "Oh, that was wonderful."
Yeah.
No, you get one guy laughing, and then or someone else like you saying you really enjoyed it, and then you go home. I was like, okay, I just no idea. So it's weird. You come away like we entered quite a lot of festivals because it was Nick's first short film. I'd kind of given up on festivals.
Mhm.
My film before that, we just put it straight on YouTube, just because I was, I'd make a film. I made a film, one of my previous monologue films, made for £27. And then I think I spent 500 quid entering festivals. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
well, I could have made another 20 films
Yeah.
for that.
I get that.
And so it's kind of like, am I seeing a benefit? Am I seeing a worthy benefit for the cost of this? But we ended by a lot of festivals because Nick was keen to, and we didn't get into any big ones. We got into quite a few. We won a few awards, but it's really hard to judge whether your film's had an impact on that kind of thing. And strangely, I've got more of a sense of that from since we put it online, and it seems to have sort of done very well on YouTube. So, and we're getting quite a lot of comments from people, so that's been really nice.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question. Is that I was very happy to see it online when you did, so I could watch it again. But it's gone down unbelievably well. It's now on over 1 million views, and like you said, so many positive comments. And as you mentioned, like a lot of your other films have been straight to YouTube, so it's obviously a platform that works. But one must be very satisfying to get that feedback. But why do you think it has resonated so well and attracted the attention of so many people?
Yeah, I guess like if I read all the comments, I can't remember how many we've had, but thousands, I think. And as you get the occasional person saying, "Oh no, this." There was one that said, "Oh, the person who wrote this is really shallow." And you always remember those sorts of comments, or how did this win any award?
Yeah, well, so you're always going to get some, aren't you?
Yeah, but other comments kind of say, "Oh, this is me. It's
Yeah.
how I live my life," and things like that. So I think it's that thing I remember hearing ages ago that you can't try and be universal. You can't sort of set out to make a film that everyone's going to feel like this.
Yeah.
But actually, the more specific you are, then actually the more likely you'll be universal. If you're very specific about the human condition, about something you feel, then you'll find out that lots of other people feel that way too. So I think that is a part of it. On YouTube, as I'm sure you know, you can go through the metrics and you can look at like where people lost interest in my film. You can look, when I cut to black in that scene, the audience dropped by 10%.
Yeah. Okay.
It broke the spell, kind of thing like that. And so you can sort of look through all your films and you can see at what frame people lose interest. And Cope is by far my best film for maintaining interest. That if basically, like everybody, you lose a chunk of viewers in the first 30 seconds. But once we get past the 30 seconds, we hardly lose anybody after that.
Okay. Yeah,
once they're in, they're in. Once they've got past it, that's not my kind of film. Oh, that's a guy dying. I'm not interested. Yeah, once you lose all those people, then they stay to the end. And I think YouTube probably sees that as quite an important metric, is keeping people on the site.
Yes.
And I think that's probably because of the sort of the structure of it with the twists. Everything just hooks you onto the next bit. It just keeps people going. So I think there's the emotional element, how people feel about depression and life and things. And I think there's this sort of filmmaking element, the hooks. And then particularly the emotional side is the comments. I think YouTube likes people commenting, and it seems to be getting way more comments than any of my other films. Previous films I put on, and it will have 400 views, and then that'll be it. That'll be the end of it, kind of thing. I'm quite used to putting a film on YouTube and it just disappearing without trace. But this one's gone to over 1 million views now, and I think if you look through the metrics, it's mostly YouTube showing it to people.
Okay, so I was going to ask, has that just happened organically, or was there any promotion you did around it?
We didn't do any promotion. We did the usual, in the first 24 hours. I've sort of heard if the film, I don't know if it's true, but if the film, you need to have a bit of an impact in the first 24 hours for the algorithm pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Stick it on and 3 people watch it, it sort of disappears. So Nick and I both, emailed everybody we knew, please watch the film, even if you haven't got time to watch it, press play on it and go make a cup of tea or something, but just get it viewed, get some views up. And I think by the end of the first day we had maybe 800 views or 1,000 views or something. But then that was it. That's all we did. And then sort of like the second or third day, it just suddenly took on a life of its own. And I keep expecting it to die every day. Well, at the beginning, it was sort of every week I'd check the views again and email next day, it's dying, it's coming down. And then suddenly it'll go back up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, neither of us had done anything. We didn't do any paid promotion or anything. Just for some reason, YouTube likes it and keeps showing it to people, keeps recommending it to people.
Yeah, unbelievable. And I think well deserved as well. So would that encourage you then? I know you've already used YouTube for quite a lot of films in the past to put future works on there. And would you be more inclined to, as you have in the past, kind of like a straight to YouTube run of stuff?
Yeah, it's difficult. I do love festivals. Worcester Festival was a brilliant one. I really had a great time there. And when they're good, they're really good. But then sometimes they're not good. Sometimes you turn up and it's embarrassing and there's nobody there. And you sort of think of all the money you spent to get to that point. And it's also like, it's nice to win awards, but they don't particularly lead to anything.
Mhm.
If just because your film's got an award, okay, you can write award-winning short film on YouTube or something, but it's not like Hollywood calls or, because you've won this award.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much, I feel like I've always gained more by having the films online than I have from the festivals.
Mhm.
I don't know if I found that with your films, whether you've found a difference. I don't know if you've gained contacts from festivals and things.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always like if we're submitting to a festival, I want to have a strong reason for doing it. And I think a lot of the time for me, it is a place that's got a good community where you're actually going to meet some people. So I think that is a valid reason if you're like, okay, there's going to be a lot going on there where you can meet people. But then also, I think as most people would, if there is credibility to be gotten from that, which you can then use for future pitches or whatever you think that's valid. I think when we did our first one, I fell into the trap of like, and it was more for the excitement of it. It's like, is there any festival I can submit to?
Yeah,
I wanted that satisfaction of putting on. And I suppose that's part of it at the start, is that you want to be able to be like, oh yeah, this is great. But I think the more you go into it, you realize you want to get something out of it. Whether that just be the experience. But as you say, there's a lot of great festivals out there, but then there's a lot where you can just get lost in it, or it's just done for the sake of getting submissions in and getting you out the door. But I think, I'd always say that to people, is like, know why you want to spend the money to put that film in there, not just so you can be like, oh, it got in.
Yeah, and obviously you can do both, which is what we normally do. You do your sort of year of festivals and then you put it on YouTube. And that's what I've done with all my films, apart from the one before Cope, which was the straight to YouTube one, just because I sort of thought the opportunity cost is it not being online for a year while you're doing the festivals. And then am I better off having it out there for that year, or am I better off having it hidden but doing the festivals? And with that one, because it was a comedy, we just sort of felt it didn't feel very festivally.
Okay.
So we just thought, let's just go straight on YouTube and see what happens with it.
Because it is a fair trade-off, that. Because like a year's a long time, especially if you've spent a long time and a lot of effort making something. You want to get it out there and actually start getting some impacts from it. If you go, it's a year. But yeah, it is. I suppose it's that balance of weighing what you want to get out of it. I get that. Anyway, moving on to the future. Are there any projects you're working on at the moment, or is there anything that you are hoping to work on into the future?
A few things, I've got a couple of scripts that are written and ready to shoot, but it's just finding, the impetus, the right people, the right money. And I've got a horror short that I've just written,
Oh,
but I think it's a little bit inspired by The Thing, and I think it's probably the VFX budget is too great.
okay.
But I'm at that stage where I wrote it about 3 months ago, and then when I finish a film, I just put it away, and then come back to it in a couple of months. Probably next week, I'm going to reread it and see if it's a disaster,
Okay.
or whether when I read it back, I sort of think, oh, there is something in here. And then if there is, I'll start getting quotes for prosthetics and things like that to see whether it's worth making. But for quite a long time, people have been saying to me, "Oh, you should make a feature. Don't waste your time with shorts.
Mhm.
For the amount of effort you put into a short, you can, for 3 shorts, you've got a feature film kind of thing." So that's the sort of where my focus is now. I started having these thoughts about making a micro budget feature. And then I ended up joining a group of filmmakers. Someone set up a little group of there's 12 of us in the Southwest, and we've all kind of pledged to direct or make a micro budget feature film within the next 2 years. And then we all act as a support network for each other, sharing things we've learned, sharing our projects, discussing ideas, and sort of supporting each other to try and make this happen. That is kind of where my focus is for the next year, really, is I'm in the process of writing a feature film.
Fantastic.
And then I think it's probably too ambitious. Someone said to me the other day, that's very typical of me, which I hadn't realised, but that my idea is too ambitious. And it does feel like it might be with the feature film. It might be more, I think we're sort of looking at under 100 grand feature films.
Mm-hmm.
But my idea is might have a bit too much action in it. But this is partly why I sort of got interested in writing the horror short, is because if you want to make films that make money back for
Mhm.
your investors, genre filmmaking is often a good way to do that. Horror, thriller, something like that. And if you go back, as you've been back over my films, they're kind of a bit more touchy-feely, emotions, thoughts. And so I sort of feel like I probably could do with making the genre short
Mhm.
next. That's why I thought, well, I'm going to write a horror film and see how that comes out.
Yeah.
To sort of show potential investors, he can actually make films with a story. With the action and excitement in them.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, so exciting stuff ahead. I think it's always good to explore, isn't it? It's like, I don't think being too over ambitious is ever a bad thing, because you can always rein it in, but you need to have ambition and drive to want to do it.
And also, because I've often, but not always, written, produced, and directed, I sort of think of them as 3 different hats, really. And I feel like when I'm writing, although you kind of, in some ways, you should have an awareness, like we talked about earlier, like having a single location film. If you can come up with that idea at the beginning, that's a good place to start.
Mhm.
But also, I kind of don't want to rein in the writer with the producer nagging at him, saying, "Oh, no, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
afford that. We can't afford that." I sort of feel more like when you're writing, you're just writing. You're just
Uh-huh.
writing the best film you can. And then you put your producer hat on and say, "Oh, I don't think the train station, that's not going to be doable." And then you can sort of start to adjust it and then see if it's still worth making when the producer's had his say. But yeah, I don't like to bring the producer as part of it in too early. I just like to sort of reform the writing first.
Yeah, I think that's a very good bit of advice as well, because if you go into trying to think of all things at once, you're just going to restrict yourself too much in actually creating and developing something, whereas you can figure the rest out afterwards. But I'm a big believer in, and aligned with what you were saying about your filmmaking network that you've developed, is like collaboration and co-production is the way to go. One, to actually get something off the ground, but for that very reason is that you can have someone come in with a separate perspective, and you're not having to think about all of the things that might then restrict you.
Yeah,
And I think if you are uh, accountable to someone else as well, it'll give you that drive to actually get it going.
yeah,
It's always hard to do everything on
it
your own.
is. Yeah, that is the slog with short films, isn't it? Particularly that it's just you pushing. There's lots of other people who are like, "Oh, they're happy to help," but if you keel over, the whole thing falls apart, kind of thing. And that's one of the nice things about slightly getting more professional with your filmmaking, is you get other people who are keen to make it happen and are trying to make it happen, and you're all pushing together, and then it gets momentum of its own, and that's when it gets really exciting.
Yeah, Absolutely. I'm fully aligned with that. Well, I think we'll round off there because we've had a good old chat, and I think we've been at it for quite a while. I fully appreciate you sharing that and all the insights into your career, past films, and everything you're looking to work on in the future. And I thoroughly look forward to seeing as your future films develop.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. It's really fun.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
Well, there we have it. That was my conversation with Anthony Sutcliffe. As I mentioned earlier, Cope is a genuinely remarkable piece of filmmaking, tightly written, beautifully paced, and not one to miss if you haven't already sought it out on YouTube. I'll make sure the link is in the show notes for this, but if you do go and search Cope short film on YouTube, because it has become so popular, you'll easily be able to find it. So definitely give it a watch and share it with all your other film-loving friends. I found it really fascinating hearing Anthony's perspective on how a short film finds its audience. Talking about festivals, obviously we love film festivals on this podcast. I often talk with other filmmakers about that, how they're a great opportunity to meet other people, and that's how I met Anthony, but that's not the only route out there, and I think the fact that Anthony's found a great audience for his film through an online distribution, specifically YouTube, and hearing his insights on that you don't always have to take the classic path, and actually he's had a lot more joy with putting them out there on YouTube is fascinating, but also inspiring for filmmakers, knowing that there are different routes out there and there's not that pressure just to follow a linear classic route to get attention, that actually maybe you could get some more traction with your filmmaking by using different means online and actually thinking about different ways of getting your film out there. People want to watch short films. That's the main thing. And hearing about Anthony's experience in that is something that I think will spur a lot of people on. It is a real insight into the modern landscape of independent filmmakers and something that we all have to navigate and think about. And seeing a film that I think deservedly, that's the whole point here. It's not just any old films getting loads of views on YouTube. It's a film that has, at a festival, got a great audience and a great reaction, and then it's gone online and done unbelievably. I think that just shows that if you can make a great film, people will watch it. So, yeah, more inspiration to be taken there, and hearing about how Anthony put that together was fascinating. For my own filmmaking journey as well, I think it has spurred me on and given me different thoughts, and this is why I love having these conversations. And as you heard, we also spoke about Anthony's 20 years working within the camera department of different TV shows and how he's developed over the years, how he got into that industry. And again, a lot of people might just think there's only certain ways to get into film, TV, video, and yes, the industry is changing, but there's a lot of people out there who are willing to help, and if you show passion, interest, hard work, and willing to develop and be creative, that more often than not people will lend you a helping hand if you give your all and show that you're willing to get stuck in. And I think Anthony's account, even though he said that it's not a straight line journey, it's not linear, there'll be bumps along the way, is that there's an industry out there that you can get stuck into, and whether you're starting out or you've been working in it for years or it's something that you've wanted to get into after just being a hobbyist and interested in film and TV, there's a lot of creative and fun and interesting and talented people out there. So go and do it and get stuck in. And I think that's a message that I get from a lot of the individuals we have conversations with on this podcast, is that people are enthusiastic about this. People want to be creative, and if you are all of those things as well, you can meet some fantastic people and do some creative things and do some amazing things that can go on to get some fantastic traction. And this is one of the reasons I love having these conversations. So another remarkable guest who's doing brilliant work in the film and TV industry. After you've watched Cope, if you check out Anthony's YouTube channel, you can see some of his other short films on there, and I've got my fingers crossed for more to come. He said he's got aspirations for future filmmaking projects, and after seeing what he's produced so far, I'm very excited to see what he can produce. And hey, maybe we'll be seeing some even longer, bigger projects from him soon. I certainly hope so. But that's that for this episode. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to and leave us a nice review. We'd love to hear from you, but of course it helps grow the Glacé Film Club network. It is a film club after all, and we want to get as many people involved as we can to keep the film conversation going and help share those insights into independent filmmaking and good old film chit-chats. If you want to chat with us and share your thoughts and comments on episodes, we're on Instagram and TikTok at the Glacé Film Club. If you search that, you'll find us there. We are also now on Letterboxd. Yes, we have finally joined the world of Letterboxd, so you can keep up with what me and Callum are watching all through the week, not just the films that we're reviewing on the podcast, but all the films that we watch on an ongoing basis and get our thoughts and insights on those. And hopefully there'll be a bit of inspiration in there for you if you're looking for new films to check out. And if you're not watching this episode and you do want to watch future episodes, we're also on YouTube, so you can go and search for the Glacé Film Club and find us on there, where every episode now is visualised and you can see our lovely faces as we're having conversations. But that's that until next